Hey everyone, welcome to All About the Joy. This is the Private Lounge. And my guest today is Blake Fischer. Did I say your name correctly? Because I always mess up people's names.
You got it.
Okay. And you are the owner and the creator of the podcast, The Homeless Conservative.
True.
So I'm excited to have you here, but I first want to explain to people, we have a show called Culture and Consequence that we just started where we're talking about political stuff, more about teaching, kind of teaching some of the things that I think people don't know. And you reached out, or your people, I don't know if it was your PR people or who, but
I don't have people. It's just me.
You don't have people. Okay.
I don't have people yet.
Well, we get so many emails, you know what I mean? So, and normally I would have been like, nope, I don't want to talk about politics but your whole vibe totally intrigued me. Your whole thing about, just kind of being a person who is homeless as a conservative because you feel like maybe your party has, I don't know, we'll talk about what you think about that, but I was totally intrigued by it. So welcome to this show, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad it intrigued you. I think there are more people like me than we think there are, just because the loudest people are the crazy people. And I think everyone else has just kind of retreated. So I'm like trying desperately not to retreat, but it's hard sometimes.
It is really, really hard. And I think you have something in your bio or on your website, and my apologies, but you talk about exhausted citizens.
Yeah.
I think that's what got me. I'm like, okay, I may not believe everything you believe, but I'm exhausted.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are. I mean, and this is just, maybe it's anecdotal because it's the people I talk to, but it does seem like, and I think there's data that backs it up too. I mean, like last year's election, there were more independent people that were registered as independents that voted than Democrats. Mm-hmm. And both parties have been losing people to, they've been leaving. So not just like, it's not new voters signing up as independents necessarily. It's actually people are leaving Republican and Democratic parties and saying, I'm independent. Now, I don't think they're really that independent. I think they generally still feel very much like one way or the other with a party. But to me, that's a huge signal that they're at least trying to tell someone that, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And I think that's on both sides right now. It seems across the board. And so I think what I've noticed the problem is that normal people, who I'm calling, sane, people that want government to work and want to care about this stuff, I think they just are totally overwhelmed by not being like feeling like they can't trust any news source. They can't trust any person on social media because they'll see two things back to back. That's like one says this and the other one says something that completely contradicts that. And they're both presenting it as fact. They're not presenting it as opinion even. And then the person goes, well, I don't know who to believe here. Obviously, someone's not telling you the truth, but it's kind of too hard. It's like kind of hard to dig into who's telling the truth at that point. So I get a lot of questions to me just from friends and family and stuff. They're like, okay, catch me up on this, whatever, big event that's in the news, super polarizing thing, since everything's a 50-50 issue now. Everything's like, you got to be on one side or the other. There's zero nuance. You can't be like, well, here's an interest. And no, it's like, you either have to be team A or team B, team red, team blue, whatever it is. And it seems like everything's like that, whether it's a stupid American Eagles Sydney Sweeney ad that we are enraged about, or it's something that's actually happening that matters.
Right.
And so I think people are just going like, it's easier to check out and not pay attention to it. I think the problem is when normal people do that, we just kind of leave it to the really crazy partisans that then dominate all the discussion, dominate all the coverage, dominate all the just everything. And then people end up in a general election 4 years from the last time they voted. And they're like, these are our two options again. And then they just kind of either hold their nose and pick something, or they pick what's closest, and I think the problem is it's like, we're just like totally seeding between those, especially presidential elections, to the crazies. And then the normal people go like, why is it so bad?
But I'm going to disagree with you with just one thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to argue with you at all because I want this to really be about it. I know, but you know what? That's not what my show's about. And my whole thing is I want us to have a great dialogue. So the thing I'm going to disagree with you about is I actually think more people are not leaving because there are people like you and people like me who are saying, wait a minute. Now, something you don't know about me is I was a Democrat. And when the whole Joe Biden thing happened in this last election, I became not an independent. In California, we're non-party affiliate, non-party.
Okay. Yeah.
I forget what the other P stands for, but it's not independent. It's no party platform. That's what
Okay.
it is. So I agree with you that more people are doing things, or I'm hoping more people are becoming less inclined to want to be on the extremes. I've always thought we were more to the middle. I remember in the past, I would listen to people and all my liberal friends are about to have a panic attack, but most of them already know. I used to listen to Sean Hannity. It was KABC out here in Los Angeles, Larry Elder, you know what I mean? I used to, Bill O'Reilly on the radio. Now, I didn't agree with them, but I could listen to them because I wanted to understand what their thought process was. And at that time, I was like, oh, I can see where you're going. It was a way for me to be educated. You know what I mean? But now it's all too hard. It's all too painful,
Yeah. And I think so I agree. I don't think you're wrong about that. I do think people are, if they are when I say they're checking out, I think there are definitely the majority. And I think it's a huge majority. I don't think it's 51% majority. I think it's most people are, if they're kind of paying attention. I think there's multiple buckets of people. I think there's a lot of people that just vote every 4 years, and that's the most they pay attention to it. I don't love that. I think as citizens, we're supposed to be a little bit more involved. I don't think I think we've kind of elevated voting a little too high on the list of things that are supposed to that's the all important thing. It's really just a job interview that you're simultaneously firing someone and hiring someone else at the same time.
Right.
I think what we've done is that most people feel that way. I think most people go, I'm voting. You hear a lot of anecdotal stories about people holding their nose and voting for the lesser of two evils. You hear that term all the time.
So sad. It's so sad.
And I think those people realize that I'm voting for this person, and if it doesn't go the way I think it will, I will vote for someone else. You know what I mean? That's generally how it goes. I think the sort of crazies, the people I'm talking about that are kind of have always been very partisan, and I think that they feel like the second they vote for someone, they have to then defend everything that person does from then on if they win. And
I agree.
Not how I think American politics was set up to be. I think we're always supposed to be holding the people that we elect accountable, always. That's our number one job. That's the press's number one job. And what's happened with people like Sean Hannity, someone I used to pay attention to too, as a conservative. I loved watching Bill O'Reilly back in the 90s, early 2000s and stuff. I think most of the time, but I also I just think it's good to listen to people and pay attention to people that you're going to disagree with, because it's going to challenge your beliefs and your views. And you might realize, oh, actually, that's a great idea that I do agree with. Because I think most of this is much more nuanced. But what we've turned it into, I think Trump is the symptom of this. I don't think it's that he caused this. But what we've turned it into is no, once you've got to be, my least favorite question is when people go, do you support Donald Trump? And I'm like, what does that mean? I don't support anyone blindly. I don't just blindly say any politician can do anything they want. And if they've got the right letter after their name, I'm going to say, okay, there are going to be things I disagree with that he does. There are going to be things I agree with. There are going to be, and that should be the case with everyone.
Yeah, but you were paying attention. So I think that's kind of why I also wanted to have you on the show is I don't think a lot of people are paying attention as closely, so that's why they end up being well, I'm a Democrat, so I have to only support the Democrat. And I can't tell you how much flack I got for loving John McCain. I mean, I didn't vote for John McCain, but I've always loved him. I always thought he was such a great human being, I agree. And I disagreed. The whole Sarah Palin thing is just so unfortunate, right? It is. It just is.
Yeah, that campaign was off the rails by the time they picked Sarah Palin. They already knew it was a Hail Mary to try to potentially win. They already knew
just weird. It was a weird, and it wasn't really. It wasn't John McCain. That's what was so off about it, But before we go any further, because I could see you and me, we could be talking about this forever. I want to get back to, when did you decide that this is what you wanted to do? When did you know you were a conservative? And when did you, I know it's a silly question, but just to get a flavor, because I know you did something you did something very different. Let's get a little background on who you are and how you came to this.
I'm weird. I don't think most people should pay as much attention to politics as I do. So that's the first caveat is that I say at the top of my show, I'm a political junkie so that you don't have to be. I've always enjoyed this. My uncle ran for mayor. I'm in Oklahoma City. He ran for mayor and won when I was in 8th grade. So I was like I was doing like behind the scenes campaign stuff with him because my mom was helping him a ton, like all the time volunteering. So I got kind of an early taste for that most 8th graders are not paying attention to any politics, much less like local mayoral politics. And, and so I kind of like, that's probably what got me kind of the bug of, so that's like 1998. And I was not 18 yet in the 2000 election, although that was something I was very much paying attention to. I loved cable news in like the 90s. I loved a lot of those shows on like CNN and Fox News. Fox News was a totally different thing in 1998, 1999.
It really was.
And like, I really liked Bill O'Reilly's show. I thought he got a bad rap for, now personality stuff aside, he had some flaws, obviously as a flawed human being, but his show was very much down. Like he had people on he disagreed with. He let them have the final word a lot of times. Yes, it got heated sometimes, but they were having real discussions about like, okay, give me your point. Well, what about this? And he was asking them, he wasn't just giving them softball questions, and he wasn't doing what Fox News does now, which is where they just kind of have two people come on and they have like token Democrat, but it's probably not someone that's very good at being on television. It's, they're
really challenging them. Right.
Yeah. They're uglier than the Republican that's on the TV. It's like all these kind of things like that they do.
That's funny.
There wasn't as much of that back then. Remember, Glenn Beck was on CNN in the early 2000s.
Which is what people forget that. That is so wild.
Was great when it was on CNN. And then he's like slowly gone off the rails. And what my theory on what has happened is that the way media has changed over the last 20, 30 years, especially with social media coming in and YouTube and stuff like that. Everyone started like needing to have a hot take or an extreme kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that then the audience loves that. I mean, social media, we know, loves outrage. They love fear. Those are the things that keep people on the platform. And so this platform serve that stuff up more.
Yeah.
And I think there's a whole, like, I hang out with like 20-year-olds a lot because my wife is the women's like 20-something pastor at our church. Okay. So we hang out with 20-somethings quite a bit. And often I'm having these kind of conversations with them. I'm like, they only know politics with Donald Trump in it. Like, if you're 24,
that's right, because they're so young. Right.
If you're 24, that's all you've known. Yeah. Because for the last, almost decade he's been in the picture, and it's kind of been this crazy topsy-turvy thing. Social media has changed, with coverage of this stuff works. And so what I've noticed is that it just seemed like, so I kind of grew up in just a different political kind of era where it seemed like I was a musician. So I hung out with people I disagreed with all the time. I mean, it would be like, like a Republican in California or a Democrat in Oklahoma. It's like, I was surrounded by people I disagreed with, but I never had a problem having discussions with this. We were like touring around the country before we had smartphones. So all you could do is talk about stuff. So we talked about everything. It was movies, it was music, it was politics. And I've just never had a situation where I couldn't be friends with someone because we disagreed. And I feel like that's totally shifted.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, has that changed for you now?
No, I don't think it has changed for me, just because I think I always, when I have discussions with people like that, I'm just honest about like, I think you're wrong and here's why I think you're wrong or something. But I'm not like mean about it. I'm never like, you're an idiot or you're evil. I think the big problem is over the last, it really started in the 90s too. This was going on certainly in the 90s, but it turned into we no longer just disagreed with what people, like their opinion on how to fix something was. It was they had bad intentions. It was like they're evil or they're trying to destroy the country or like that language just come in. And so basically I was really interested in politics always. I wanted to do a podcast forever about it, but I just kept not doing it because I couldn't figure out like, well, what do I do? What's like, how do I be?
I think you found your niche.
And then finally, after like COVID happened and stuff, and I had started some music podcasts with friends, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. I think I should just do this. And so, and I just also just saw that there are some great people that are very fact-based and very like honest about like, hey, we're calling out no matter what. But they are getting fewer and fewer and fewer because there are so many of those people that I used to pay attention to that I don't anymore because they've kind of been captured by the crazy part of their audience. Yeah. And once they get captured by that, they can't get away from it. And so you've seen it happen. Tucker Carlson is another person that was like someone I paid attention to when he was on MSNBC. And
I'm going to be honest that I never liked him even on MSNBC.
well, I mean, but
not for, you know how somebody just rubs you the wrong way.
yeah, like I know he's a smart guy, and something has happened over the last 20 years where he's lost it. He's either lost his mind, or he really believes this stuff, or he's just lying to his audience. I don't know. I really cannot figure out that conundrum, because he's saying things that directly contradict like very strong opinions he had 10 years ago. And but I feel like that's everyone on my side, especially.
Let me ask you this question. So, because I could listen to you the whole time, but then I don't need to be here. You could just talk on your own podcast. But yeah, no, you're great. Let me ask you this question. Can you explain to my audience what it means to be a conservative, and what is it that you think the Republican Party has maybe changed, left out, is not doing what may have kept you with the Republican Conservative Party?
That's a great question, because I think so much of the problems with the way we talk about politics is that the definitions of these words have changed like significantly. And you might have a different definition of conservative than I do. For me, what conservatism really should mean, I mean, this would be what I would fight for. Because like, I want to conserve the constitutional order that we set up for the federal government and for the states to work. I think that's
you're a constitutional conservative, right?
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean we can't change the Constitution, because
there are amendments for, right?
If we have amendments for. So like, that's not what I'm saying either. I'm not one of these people that thinks that we should just like ditch all the amendments that came in or something and just keep it the exact same. I think it's meant to be an evolving thing, but I think that was designed to be hard for a reason, because I think the founders were smart to think that we should not trust anyone with absolute power. We should not trust any one person or any one branch with more power than without checks on them. Right. They designed the presidency to not be what it has turned into over the last 100 years. It was the least powerful branch of government, honestly, when it was designed. And Congress had all the power. They just couldn't foresee that Congress would, I guess, give that power up voluntarily, which is kind of strange to me too.
So before you keep going, and I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but I know my audience, so I want to make sure they understand something. So when we talk about equal, we're talking about legislative, executive, and what am I missing? Judicial. All three of those are supposed to be equal and supposed to be checks and balances. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, except I disagree. I do not think they were meant to be equal. I think that's something that started with honestly, you started hearing that kind of rhetoric, I would call it, during like Woodrow Wilson, FDR, and these ones that wanted more executive power. And so they started calling them co-equal branches, but that's not in the Constitution. The founders never called them co-equal, but they certainly said there's checks and balances.
Checks and balances, okay.
But when you look at the list of things that it says, you've got Article 1, which is covering Congress, Article 2, which is the presidency or the executive branch, and then Article 3, which is the judicial branch. There are a lot of things listed in Article 1 that it says Congress has the power to do. And there are not very many things that it says, basically the president has the power to pardon.
Right.
The president has the power to veto legislation that comes to them, although Congress can then override that veto with 2/3 majority. Right. So Congress even has a check on the executive branch's check on them. Right. So if you had a rogue president that was gonna veto everything that came their way, Congress still has a way to go past them. You just got to get 2/3. You got to get a bigger majority than you do to just pass a simple law.
But that's not happening.
No, it's not.
It hasn't for a while, right?
Taxing, all that kind of stuff. The ability to declare war. All of these things are congressional things that the president actually does not have the ability to do. But over the last 100 years, we have slowly ceded that power to the executive branch. So my main problem with saying that the Republican Party is not very conservative right now is that I don't see that anyone in Congress is interested in grabbing that power back. And I think that almost every problem we have.
Wait, say that again, because you just confused me.
Yeah.
Say that again. That was great. I'm just confused by what you mean by that.
So Congress has slowly given their powers away to the executive branch by normally what they're doing is like some sort of thing comes up. Let's say that it's World War II. I mean, that's a good example of this because it's a crisis. Okay, we need to act quicker. And so a lot of times they will then go, okay, we're going to write a law that says the president can do X, Y, and Z And then they always tried to do it in a way that said like, yeah, but we have a final check on that by saying, for example, it happened in the 70s with the stuff that Trump's using right now for his excuses for the reason he has the ability to levy tariffs. The president does not have the ability to create tariff. That's Congress. But Congress did pass a law that basically said, okay, the executive branch can do this in emergency situations. And then we can, I can't remember, they called it a legislative veto is what they called it. Well, what happened is that they wrote that law. Great. Okay, we've got to check on that. The Supreme Court came back and said, no, there's no such thing as a legislative veto. That's not anywhere in the Constitution.
That's not a thing.
That part of the bill gets basically stripped out. So now all they've done is completely handed that power over to
the president.
Over the presidency. And without the check of Congress being able to come back. Now, the thing is, Congress could pass a law today that takes all that away. Like I said, this is all completely, again, if Donald Trump tried to veto it, he can get 2/3 of Congress to say, no, we actually need that power back. I think that would actually be wise to do, but it looks like it's going to, if it's anyone, it's going to be the Supreme Court that says. So but Congress has slowly done that. Started with Woodrow Wilson. It escalated quite a bit with FDR. It escalated a lot more under Nixon. It's just slowly done this. And you see the number of executive orders. If you look at just how many executive orders, it's increased with every president. It really ramped up with George W. Bush. Obama did more than Bush. Then Trump did more than Obama. And then Biden did more than Trump. And then Trump has done more than Biden did before, So we just we're doing everything via executive order. Congress has only passed, I think, I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me on it. I think they've only passed 4 bills since Donald Trump became president.
I mean, I think what people don't understand, and I think it's something I want to emphasize here, is I say this respectfully. Donald Trump, I think, is a different kind of entity that has occurred. And I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. I mean, I think you're right. We've eroded our power. Congress is supposed to be a reflection of the people, right? Because we put them into power. They should be those checks and balances, but it's been stripping away. You're absolutely right. Over all that time, I love how you did that. But I feel like Donald Trump has just changed the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't look at, everyone knows how I feel about Donald Trump. You can already guess. But my question to you is not how do you feel about Donald Trump, but do you think Donald Trump is an anomaly, or do you think this is the way in which we're going to go forward in the Republican Party and the Conservative Party? Do you see any way of this changing?
Oh, yeah, that's tough. I think he is a little bit of an anomaly in the sense that I don't think people are we've seen that people have tried to repeat his sort of style and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It's like an imitation. I think that Donald Trump is authentically himself, if that makes sense. I don't think he's not doing the politician. No, it does. Me too. But at least he's authentically himself. And the people that have tried to repeat that somehow have not succeeded for the most part. Most of his, even people that he picks to run for congressional seats and stuff, have lost. I mean, J.D. Vance, the exception, but even J.D. Vance, I mean, going back to that Senate, when he won that Senate thing, I guess that was 2020.
Yeah, that was before. That was before though Trump, right? Oh, Trump had. Trump was right.
In the primary, and that's kind of J.D. Vance needed to hitch his wagon to him. But even in that, J.D. Vance, don't have the exact numbers, but he won by like 6 points, and the governor of Ohio, who's also a Republican, won by like 18 points.
Yeah, so there was a discrepancy.
It was still J.D. Vance won by a lower margin than all the other Republicans on the ballot in Ohio that year or whatever. And I might not be completely right about all the Republicans, but either way, the point being that other than J.D. Vance, almost everyone else, Herschel Walker, I can't even remember most of the people's names. Most of them didn't win in the primary because people just don't want an imitation. I think people want at least someone to be authentic and honest. I do think he's an anomaly in the sense that we thought that we could give these powers to the executive branch because that person would be respectful of like norms and some of these things that are a little bit more not written down as law, but they're more like, this is the way we do things.
Romney or John McCain, or you can go down the list of conservatives, Republicans who would not abuse.
Right. Yeah. But my thing, going back to like, what does it mean to be conservative? My thing is to not trust, I think human nature is unchangeable. I think that we are not good by nature. And I think you have to write every law, and you have to make.
No, you
No, I
really
mean,
want it.
well, I mean, not in a sense that I think people are bad, but in the sense that I think you have to design government to expect someone that is bad to be in that position and make sure that you can check that. Does that make sense? Like, it's not
Blake,
like,
you just blew my mind. Like please keep going. That was actually really something I never thought of, because I actually believe most people are good, but in the context that you're putting it in.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's how, you even look at how much, I mean, because go back to the founding of the country, and they were very suspicious of single people like kings having all the power to do whatever they want. And so they fought and fought and fought over, like, how do we design a government that makes sure that doesn't happen? And I just don't, and I think they did the right thing. I think they just didn't imagine that Congress would be like, yeah, sure, here's all our power to the executive branch. It seems so silly, because now we literally have, I think the anomaly here is that where Donald Trump is definitely an anomaly is that he really only cares about himself. He does not really care about the Republican Party. He's said over and over again he doesn't consider himself a conservative. So I don't really understand why the defense of people who do consider they're conservative, why they can't disagree with that and still vote for him. Like, that's fine.
No, but what's your reasoning for why people don't see as clearly what's everything you just said? I'm not extremely liberal. I'm very to the middle. Okay. I used to be proud to call myself a conservative Democrat.
Yeah.
Because I really believed that's what I was. Now I want nothing to do with the word conservative, because I'm so disgusted by it. Right.
Well, right. And I think that's the problem, is that, like, conservatism needs a rebrand for sure. Because the problem is most people just go, oh, well, Donald Trump's conservative. Well, no, I mean,
he's not conservative.
He's not conservative at all. And you used to be able to have, we as voters, and I actually don't think it's we as voters in the general election. I think it's really the primaries, and we could get into a whole thing about why I think the primaries are really part of the problem that we have. But
talk about that next time you come on. But
what we've done is that we no longer reward people that are nuanced, and so you cannot be a socially conservative Democrat. You cannot be a socially liberal conservative. Like, you can't. We just don't allow that anymore.
We don't allow that anymore. You're right.
Joe Manchin's, like, all the people that we would consider a little centrist, John McCain, all those kind of people that you mentioned, they kind of got forced out
they did.
in the Donald Trump era. And on both sides, Democrats are doing the same thing right now, where they're going, it's this ideological purity test. Although, oddly enough, the ideological purity test on the right now is, do you say nice things about Donald Trump? It's not actually, it has nothing to do with issues, because that might change. The Democrats are doing it a little bit more on some sort of ideology, although it's kind of weird to some of the things that they've just hammered down on, which I just go, I think electorally are super foolish. I just think like very clearly in 2024, people were rejecting a lot of the things that Democrats were going, you have to be A, B, and C, or you can't be in our party. I think if the parties had more power, we'd be in better shape.
You said more power.
Yeah, and what I mean by power is, like, we don't have, because of, like, okay, again, not assigning intentions, but, like, good intentions don't lead to good results all the time. And one of those things would be campaign finance reform in the 2000s. They're trying to, get money out of politics, which is impossible. And what ended up happening is now all the PACs, super PACs, can get unlimited donations, but you cannot unlimited donate to parties.
Right.
So the parties are basically absolutely chained to those PACs.
That's
and most of those PACs are single issue, which means they only care, like the NRA only cares about gun control.
They only care about guns. They don't care about anything else.
Nothing else. Right. And Planned Parenthood only cares about their thing.
And so they're only going to be with that person for that issue whatsoever. That's the only thing they're going to. Like, as long as you're Planned Parenthood, I'm going to back you and give you millions of dollars.
Right. And so Planned Parenthood and NRA and all these other people are, like, hanging over the politicians. Well, we don't endorse you if you don't completely get in line with us. And what that's like, if the Republican Party and Democrat Party had any control over their primaries at all, Bernie Sanders, who is not really a Democrat, and Donald Trump, who is not really a Republican, would not have been able to run for president in 2016. They would not.
I agree with you 100%.
You know what I mean? And so that's what's been weird, is that we've turned it into, I do think Donald Trump has changed politics in a couple ways that I don't think are going to change. I think one is that we are fully in I think Obama sort of started this, but Trump sort of put the nail in it, is like, it is about personality and nothing else. Like, unfortunately for most voters now, it's like, do I like this guy or not like this guy? And that is it.
I got to go back even further and say Clinton, right? Personality was a thing.
But I will say Clinton was a very good politician. Like, he was very good.
You and I are going to disagree on whether Barack Obama's a good politician or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he could see where the country was, and he was going there. Like, honestly, like Donald Trump honestly ran Bill Clinton's campaign this last year. I mean, it was not much different if you look issue to issue.
Say that again.
Like, Donald Trump basically ran like Bill Clinton did.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Okay,
it's not that much different. Like, if you watched the, and you
know what I'm hating about you right now? You're telling me stuff I've never thought about. So
yeah. I'm not saying they agree on everything, but really they are closer, because Bill Clinton was seeing that, like, hey, I've got to be a little more. He was leaning into the conservatism side a little bit. We were kind of demanding fiscal responsibility and some of that stuff. And so Bill Clinton leaned into that so he could get reelected. And that stuff did happen. He had, for the first time, he was dealing with a majority in Congress that was Republican, and he had, if you were going to get anything done, you have to work with them.
Yeah.
I think that Obama was just a little too green at it at the time. I think that I think
there were other things also. I mean, I don't want to get into a debate about Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, but I also think there were other issues happening with Barack Obama being the first Black president. That was a big deal. And I think there was not only negotiation happening, but other stuff at play that we can talk about on another podcast. But
yeah, I also think generally presidents are better if they've been governors before. I think that's
I agree with you 100%.
It's a stepping stool, whereas like coming from the Senate, it's just a totally different thing.
And, yeah, and it was a state. Wasn't he state senator? He wasn't.
Well, he was a state senator for a couple of years, and then he was a United States senator for 2 years before.
It was like 2 years. Yeah, yeah. I agree with you there. So, and again, I'm not trying to stop you. I am trying to stop you. I just want to make sure we get the full flavor of who you are.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think the whole thing about arguing about politics is also bad. And I'll tell you, one of the things that bothers me is people believe that they have facts on their side. People believe that, because they watched a YouTube video or whatever, they listen to you or they listen to me and they're like, well, this is, and people aren't doing the research, right? Because we have the attention span of a gnat.
Oh, God.
So we can't research anything. We can't look at anything further than that headline or whatever, So my question to you is, how do we fix it?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I mean, I think the first thing is to reward the people that are doing it well. So most of that is now, I mean, I follow individuals more than I follow organizations, just because the organizations can totally change. And it's not, I want those organizations to be better. I do. I think that we're lacking institutional fortitude lately. I feel like everyone's just kind of using whatever the institution is as a platform to further their own career or thing. And what I would like to get more to, like, these organizations, be they news organizations or political organizations or whatever, to be more about the institution and not about the individuals making it up. But right now we're kind of just not in that thing. With social media and stuff, it is about single individuals. That's where a lot of people are getting their news, is from, that kind of stuff. So reward the people that do a good job at it. And I think the one way you can tell someone does a good job at it is citing sources. I just think that's the primary thing that has to happen, is to say, well, here I'm pulling up this resource that says this is the facts. And it's not just me telling you it's the facts. It's like, here's the New York Times, or here's Washington Post, or here's Fox News, or whatever the source is. It's like, give me some sources.
So that's what we do on Culture and Consequence. We, we'll have our conversation, but then afterwards, when I'm editing, I'll put at the bottom where our sources are from. Or if we make a mistake, like, that's the other thing. Why can't people just say, you know what? I made a mistake. I apologize. Let me take that back. Here's the actual information. We don't do that either.
No.
While I just realized I haven't put out your website for the audio. I want to make sure everyone knows it's thehomelessconservative.com. That's thehomelessconservative.com. Please go and check him out. Follow him on YouTube. Let me ask you this. What do you think individual people should do if they're feeling lost, besides listening to your podcast or coming to your YouTube? No, really, or checking us out on our little political thing that we're doing. What would you say to someone who maybe is a Trump supporter, is disenchanted, is trying to find their way through, or a Democrat who's like, this isn't working for me either? What do I do? Where do I go? Who do I listen to? Who do you listen to? Who do you like?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to talk to people about it. I think that what's always fascinating to me is that I can have, I think a lot of people think that we've been told, okay, don't talk about politics or religion at the dinner table or whatever, and like in company. And I just think that we've not done a really good service to us as citizens to be like, oh, you shouldn't talk about politics. I think that most of the time when people start talking about an issue, they find that there's a lot more in common than they have where they disagree. And I think that
the problem is people don't know how to talk.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you just do it and it's going to be messy maybe, but like, trust that the other person, like as long as you believe the other person has good intentions, like they don't have bad intentions, like go into it with that. And also go into it that like with the idea that we can disagree and let's find things that we can agree on. Let's find things we disagree on. And you can still be friends. I think that's the primary thing because so many people have just isolated to being only around people that they agree with.
I find it hard to be friends with some of my family members who are Trump supporters. And
I
say that I like at the beginning of this second term, I was like, okay, you know what? All right, he's our president. Let's just, I'm a hope for the best, man. I want to be open to it. He's our president.
You live here. You would like things to go well, right?
I want it to go well. I want to believe tariffs are going to work, even though I know they're not. Like thing, okay? Just trying to do it, okay? And then it just got really bad, especially with the whole immigration thing and just how things are being done. Not why you want them done, how they're being implemented, right? Because even if I disagree with you as president, George Bush or whatever, I'm going to be like, okay, you're the president. I understand the logic. I disagree with you, but I'm going to move on,
Right.
But this has been so much of it. First of all, it's every day. Every day it's something. And then it's just petty. Some of it's so bad. And so what's happened with me, I'm just being very vulnerable here with you because I want to hear what you have to say, is at some point I was like, yeah, no, you keep supporting someone who is hurting other people. Like, I don't know how to walk through that. So what would you tell me? What would you say to me?
Well, see, I have these conversations with my Trump supporting people as well. So I like same thing. And normally what I'm trying to bring that back to is that my call out for the people that are super MAGA and support Donald Trump no matter what. And by the way, this would go across the board with any politician. It doesn't matter. It's just like, it's obviously a phenomenon right now with Trump, but it could be with anyone.
Anybody in the future, right?
Right. Is that like, you've got to have like ideals and principles and you've got to have, I think people need to do a better job at like going, what is my idea of how, like where I stand on this issue? And that's not how it works with Donald Trump. How it works is, well, what Donald Trump says, I support. And that might be something different on Tuesday than it is on Wednesday. And so that's what I've tried to call out with like Trump supporting friends is and family members. It's like, okay, what's the principle here that you're supporting? And normally I can call out something in the past. I'm like, I know you don't believe that. So I had a conversation with a friend the other day, really close friend, where they're definitely more supportive of Trump than I think they should be. He's named all of his kids after presidents. So I know this guy cares about the Constitution.
Wow,
I know
that's great.
And I go, I know you don't really believe that what Donald Trump is doing is good. I know that you don't believe that. So I'm just trying to get under like, why do you then support him? And I think it's like talking about those issues first. And that's at least how I try to come from arguments is going like, how do you think this furthers what you want? Because I mean, depends what you want. I mean, obviously everyone's going to be in a different area on that. But I think that we've gone way too far down this hole of tribalism and turning politics into a religion, like a replacement for religion, where you can't ever be wrong. You can't ever be nuanced and you can't ever admit your team, isn't the good guys or something. And I just think that's a bad way to do it. So like, I'm trying to get people out of that tribal mentality.
No, you're right. But you're still, okay. But here's the problem. You still didn't answer my question. I agree with everything you just said.
How would they do that if they want to be?
I'm sorry?
So it's like, how would they get out of that if they want to?
No, like, so for me, I have dismissed them and I have decided It's just not in my best interest.
Yeah.
No, we have a lot of people who are Trump supporters that listen to our show. We do. And it's because we have Rick Costa, who's our co-host. He has a religious show. And so a lot of people who follow Christianity also come to our show. And I feel so blessed and I love them. And we don't talk about politics on the shows that they come and visit in. And it's fine. Even if we did, it would be respectful. You know what I mean? Because everyone knows what the bar is. And I think, I want to do better as well. That's why I started the other show. And that's why I'm having you on. And I want you to come back. Will you come back?
Oh, I would love to anytime.
And maybe then we could do some debating. I ain't going to debate with you, but you and Andrea and maybe Joel would have a great time.
I guess I called it arguing or debating, but really I think it's more like discussions. It's like being able to talk with people and you coming from a different viewpoint and even just being able to find where the common ground is. I just think we're not doing enough of that. And even then looking at when we were talking about the shows we used to pay attention to, it was Hannity and Combs. It was a Democrat and a Republican on that Fox News shows that argue each other. It was Tucker and what's his name on James Carville, right? On MSNBC at the time, or that was CNN, I guess.
No, CNN.
Yeah. So we used to have these people that would sit there and argue. And now, if you've noticed, that's just totally changed. Now it's like only Republicans over here, only Democrats on these shows. And I just think we're not having those discussions enough, and people aren't being able to listen to those discussions enough.
We're going to have those discussions because I'm going to ask you to come back. You're right. I don't want to argue. And I think you and I are probably more aligned. That I think most people are.
Yeah.
And I think we could have a really good conversation about Barack Obama, and we will disagree on certain things, but I think we'd also agree on a lot of things, or at least be able to see the through line. And that's what I always learned when I was listening to Fox, right? Yeah. And I don't listen to Fox anymore, but.
Oh, I don't either. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. It's totally off the rails propaganda at this point.
Off the rail. But back in the day, I was able to, even if I didn't understand why they believed what they believed, I understood the logic. I mean, even though I disagreed with what they believed, I understood the logic. And I think that's what the difference is right now, is that we don't even try to understand why you believe what you believe so that I can understand where you're coming from.
But I think part of the problem there is that most people don't really have a good answer for that question. If you ask them why they believe what they believe, it's really just because Donald Trump has the right letter after his name, or because he's told me I have to, or it's the same, like I said, it's the same thing on the left. It happened with Biden too, a lot, like where, just because that's the most recent example, is like, no matter what he did, I've got to defend it because he's on my team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not sports. This is not, it's different. And so I think the biggest problem is that most people don't really have a firm foundation of what they believe. Like I said, I think the stat is like 37% of people polled in the United States can't name the three branches of the government. So if we don't know that, like, and we're not doing good civics education, there's a whole discussion there about like, we are just not educating people well enough.
Well, I said it the other day on the show, and I got so many emails, like people got upset. I said, if you can't pass the same test that people pass to become U.S. citizens in this country, I don't want you voting. And it wasn't even conservatives. It was liberals who came after me for saying that.
I agree.
Saying it off the cuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, not legally, but yes. I mean, I agree. I feel the same way. I go, and I've said that to Republicans specifically because just the immigration debate is a little bit different on obviously the right.
Of course.
But I mean, I've had that conversation with, like, chances are that immigrant passed a citizenship test that you can't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like there's, they might be more civically educated about this country than you are. And I don't know that that's the thing. Is I would say that we obviously have an education problem, but you have access. I'm not saying you. Everyone has access to the same internet I do, where I look at this stuff. It's not, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's false. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that is.
But the basics we should all know. I'm just saying.
And you should be able to find the answer you're looking for. It is hard, though. I will not lie about it being a challenge to like sort through what's fact, what's crap, what's
but knowing the three. Come on, I'm just saying there's the template of the United States that you should know. If you don't,
I agree.
Look, I get mad at people because they can't name their representative. They don't even know who represents them, and I'm like, oh my God. I just want to say thank you. This was not what I was expecting. I was excited to meet you, but I was a little nervous. Thank you for being so cool and chill. Again, it's Blake Fischer from thehomelessconservative.com. Please check him out. Please follow him on YouTube. Check out his podcast. And we're going to have you back. Do you have any last words?
No, that's really it. I'm starting to do probably more YouTube stuff and less the full like hour-long podcast stuff, just because I'm kind of tweaking content. But yeah, so YouTube's probably the best place to go. The Homeless Conservative is what it is.
Okay, it's the same. It's the Homeless Conservative. Okay, I'll make sure to put it down at the bottom as well, so everyone sees it. But thank you so much for being on this show. And everyone, remember, at the end of the day, it really is all about the joy. And we'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.